Hi guys, and you're very welcome back. Now in the previous lesson we created our basic profile page, which I still have open here, and I just want to point out one thing that I didn't do in the last lesson, and that is our title. So you can see here, look at that, my username is in the title. So pretty good. So now that we have a basic user profile page, let's make a start on the sign up page. So what does our sign up page look like at the moment? Well, let's go to it and take a look. Okay, so it's still the blank default template. So no matter what sign-up form you're using on the internet, every sign-up page is composed of a form to collect the relevant information. In Rails, we can use the form with helper, which uses an active record object to build a form using the object attributes. From a previous lesson, we know that the sign-up page /signup is routed to the new action in the user's controller. The first thing we need to do is to create the user object required as an argument to the form with helper. So let's go to app controllers users controller. So on the left hand side, app controllers users controller. Here we are. Now we need a new action because we're creating new users. New. What's going to go in here? Instance variable user. Why? Because the instance variable is available in all views. User.new. Close that off. There we go. Now we're going to code the form. And where do we do that? We'll go to views. So app, views, users, new. And as you can see, it's blank other than the functioning title. So what I'm going to do now, guys, is pause this video and come back when I have the code for the form entered. See you in a few moments. Okay guys, so here we are back in my code editor, and as you can see, I've added in some code. So let's go through it now and take a look. Let's start with the first line, or the code on line 6. We can see that there is the do keyword present. This, as we know, means that the form_width takes a block with one variable, f for form. We've seen this before. We can also see the presence of the hash argument local:_true. This argument tells form_width to send a regular form request so that our error messages render. And what does the f object do? When it's called with a method corresponding to a HTML element, such as a text field or a radio button, f returns code for that element, which is designed to set an attribute of the instance user variable object. So this would mean that when this line of code is executed, it generates the HTML needed to make a labeled text field element appropriate for setting the name attribute of the user model. So to put this very simply, on our sign up form, when it's displayed on the page, a HTML page that is, this piece of code here, and moving down to the email, password and password confirmation, these lines of code will generate the actual HTML, will take in the user input, and will set that user input as our user object model within the database. So we did this previously in the Rails console, now we're doing it through a user interface. Now in just a moment we're going to jump into our application, but you can see here the code. So name, email, password confirmation, and a submit button. So go ahead and enter that into your application now. Once you have that done, jump into your custom.scss file, and down the very end here you can see I've styled the input areas. So forms and then the different input areas. So go ahead and do that as well before proceeding. Okay, so here I am at the sign up form. We've entered in the code, we've entered in our styling, so let's refresh and see what it looks like. There we go, perfect. Now in the code I mentioned that here is generated HTML. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Now in Chrome you can view the HTML code by going into the three dots here on the right hand side, more tools, and selecting developer tools. I don't know how it works in Safari or Internet Explorer or any other web browser, but do a simple Google search for developer tools and your browser name and you'll find it. Now let's expand this out. So that's our header. We don't want to have a look at that. Here we want to have a look at our container. Let's have a look at the rows. And there we go, look at that. A secure hash and the label for our username. So this is auto-generated by the Ruby code, or I should say the embedded Ruby code that we just looked at a moment ago. So that's the name label, and you can see it actually starts and closes with a label element. Then we have our input field, and the same for each one: email address, password, and password confirmation. Now let's just take a look for a moment at this one here for name. So input type text, name, username. So the key to creating a user is the name attribute in each input. So if you think back to our Rails console, we had user.name, user.email. So this is the same thing here, and this is what creates our user object within our database: username, email, password, password confirmation. It's a bit like being in our console, except through a user interface. These name values permit Rails to construct an initialization hash for creating users using the values entered by a user. Another important thing to look at here is the form tag. So where you can see here in blue, this is the form tag, form action, and it closes the form tag down here. And when I highlight it, you can see our entire form on the left hand side is highlighted blue. Rails creates the form tag using the @user object. Every Ruby object knows its own class. Rails can figure out that the @user is of class user. Also, since @user is a new user, Rails knows to construct a form with the post method. And the post method, or the post keyword, is a proper verb for creating a new object. So what do I mean when I say all that? So the @user instance variable is a new user, and we've seen that previously via the Rails console. We're creating a new user with this form, and Rails knows to construct the form with the post method because our root here, signup, is for a new user. And we're going back to our RESTful architecture that we looked at a couple of lessons back. And as I mentioned in this lesson, we have a hash element here, and what is the purpose of this? Well, this is to prevent cross-site request forgery. So this is to prevent hacking attempts or bad or malicious actor attempts to do something with our website. Okay guys, that's it for this lesson. Hopefully you have the sign up form displaying correctly. In the next lesson, we're going to look at how to show user error messages when this form is submitted incorrectly. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you there.